Aloha and welcome. So, in today's topic, we're going to get into it's never too late to transition yourself. And what we're really focusing in on there is sometimes in life, especially as you move through life, you need to evolve, move on to different things, focus on different aspects of life, and kind of transition yourself to a new space and a new place. I have a very special guest joining me in today's session. Her name is Erica Child, Esquire, and she's going to share some of her journeys, some of her story, and we're really going to dive deep into what it really means at some point in life to say, hey, you know what? It's time to turn a corner, make that left turn, and transition yourself to something new. So stick around. Let's definitely get into it. We'll talk with her and everything here in just a minute. Well, hello, Erica. How are you doing this
Hey
morning?
there. Hi. Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing? I'm doing
I'm
great.
I'm fabulous. Thank you for taking the time out to join us today.
Mhm.
This is going to be an exciting session, I think, because I think it's a very important thing to share when we talk about transitioning yourself. And a lot of people probably saw that and were maybe a little confused and not understanding what we really meant by that. So
Yeah.
first and foremost, this is something that you really wanted to discuss. You kind of brought the idea to the table. So how about you give us a little bit of background on yourself and then also what it was in your life that you said, "Hey, I need to make that pivot or that transition," and kind of explain a little bit to our audience so they understand what we're really focusing in on today.
Yes, yes. Thank you for having me today. It's a
Sure,
pleasure
sure.
to join you, and I'm excited to have this chat with you. My name, like you said, is Erica Childs, and I'm here in Houston, Texas. I've been practicing law for about 25 years, and I grew up in a law firm of family lawyers, family and business lawyers. So this is kind of what I was born into.
Okay.
And I always knew that I wanted to be an attorney. I wasn't really sure about what type of attorney, but I knew I wanted to help people.
Okay.
I gradually veered off into working for the state, and I had some trial experience doing that. And then I had the great opportunity of doing labor and employment law, which really took me around the world. That was very exciting. But then over time, I decided, to have a family. So that was just another transition for me. And I adopted my daughter. So after doing that, I just joined the family business and I enjoyed that. But I still wanted to explore some more. So I had an opportunity to travel internationally and work internationally, and I enjoyed that. But then when I came home, that's when I found out that I actually had I was diagnosed with leukemia. And
Mm.
when that happened, let's see,
Well, sorry. This is live and looks like she dropped out there for a second. Hold on.
there, so when that happened, oh, look at that bright smile. There we go. um,
Keep,
when that happened, are you able to see the camera?
yes.
Okay. When that happened, then I went head on and stayed in Houston. Was treated by phenomenal doctors at MD Anderson, and had two stem cell transplants. Now,
Wow.
for most of you who have been through that experience, or who've had relatives who've gone through being treated for leukemia and lymphoma, you know that that is a process, right? So I was very fortunate to have great medical care, great support systems with families and family and friends. But then I found myself trying to figure out how am I going to transition, right? If you've ever had to be a caregiver, you know that that's a long road. So when you have a stem cell transplant, or when you have any type of treatment for any type of cancer, um, there's some physical challenges, of course. There are some emotional challenges
Hmm.
for almost everybody, right? Almost everybody will have financial challenges because you're not working at the same pace you are, and you're starting to go through your savings. And you really have to figure out, what is your life going to look like. One, you have to focus on surviving, right? You have to make it through.
Hmm.
Um, and that has to be your primary focus, is trying to live through it. And then when you get to the point where you kind of see some light, you have to figure out, well, what is this next phase going to look like? How am I going to recover? How am I going to come back? Or can I come back to the way my life was before? And for a lot of people, um, they don't want to. What'll end up happening for many people when they go through that kind of challenge, whether it's cancer or whether it's, it could be diabetes, could be heart problems, it could be just different health challenges. What'll often happen is that gives them time to stop and to reflect on um, what their life was, what their life could have been, and then what their life is now.
Hmm.
And it makes people slow down and really reflect on who they are now, and really who they thought they would have been.
Mm.
So it's an incredible moment to pause. And a lot of people, when they go through those types of events, they don't want to go back to life as it used to be. They think about ways that they can change or
Hmm.
that they can improve. And they begin to ponder if I'm blessed enough to survive this, how do I want to live the next years or days? When I go back home, do I want to show up for my family the same way that I showed up before?
Hmm.
Start thinking about your friends. I missed this party because I was working so much, or I missed this event because I had to travel, or I didn't go to this or celebrate this relative's event because I was too tired because I worked so much. When you go through certain health challenges, it really makes you pause to think about what kind of person you are and who God meant for you to be.
Right.
So that's the part of just transitioning, and why I like talking to people about it, and why I like hearing people's stories, hearing their experiences, is because you start to learn that there's something that everybody has in common. And that is, when we're kids, we think life is one way and we think we're going to be one way. We think we're this kind of person. But as we go through life and we grow, we really, or don't grow, right? Uh, we learn that we're not exactly who we thought we were going to be. And for
Right.
most people, I don't care how saintly you've lived, I don't care how raggedy you've lived, or if you've been back and forth between saintly and raggedy, I don't care
Mm.
who the person is. Almost everybody looks back at their 5-year-old self or their 10-year-old self and be like, wow, if I could be the adult friend or the mentor to that kid, what I know now, I would figure out a way to share it with them at the age and at the level that they could have understood it at that time.
Correct.
Um, so I do. I just love hearing people's stories. I love encouraging people, because my philosophy is every day we wake up and breathe, that's God's way of telling us that, hey, you have a purpose here.
Hmm.
And I want you to fulfill that. It's an opportunity every day. It's an opportunity to
Hmm.
reach out to somebody that we know and share, our love for them, or a word of encouragement. And also when we come across people that we don't know, it's amazing how our ability, our gift of being alive really can be a blessing to someone else that you don't know. You just pass them by them, but your smile or your act of kindness really you really will never know how much that means to somebody else, a stranger who maybe, you don't know what happened to them when they left the house, or what kind of fight they had with somebody, or their financial situation, or just the feeling in their soul. But when they come across you, if you can be that bright light with just a kind word, just to show that you're interested in that person as a human being, or that you respect them by the way you treat them,
Hmm.
um, you really can save lives. You really can make a big impact on people. And the kids around us, the children around us, our children, our friends' children, the kids at church, kids in the community, when they see how we interact with other people, it really helps to build our community. It makes our community stronger. So every day that we wake up and breathe, that is God's way of telling us that we matter, and we need to show and tell, not just tell, but show and tell people that they matter too. So
Absolutely.
I love talking to people about their lives.
Yeah. No, that is so true, and thank you for sharing that and the history and the background of your story. And you're right. The opportunities we have every day, not just to make a difference in your own life, but to make a difference in other people's lives. It's there, but it is an active, engaged step that you have to take to do those things, right? Like you said, it could be something as simple as a smile, but the
Mhm.
kindness that you show, and we've all sat in a restaurant, for example, and heard the person a table over mistreat the server, and be really rude and just those types of things. And you're
Yeah,
just like, well, why are you mistreating this? They've done nothing to you. They're
yeah,
just there
exactly.
to serve you.
Mhm.
But you have those opportunities every day, as you said, to be that light. Right. And I think that's a very important thing. And part of transitioning yourself is the awareness of that. I think is
Mhm.
one piece of it. And and I always talk about self-awareness and the key components of just being self-aware and understanding we all have everyone has a gift. And I think
Mhm.
that's the other piece,
Right.
and it may take you you may discover your gift in your 20s, you may not discover your gift till you're 60. But
Mhm.
that's what really matters is that you have a gift, that you grasp onto it, and then you take that gift and you share it with the rest of the world. And I think that's also an important piece.
Mhm.
um, One of the things that I know we had this discussion talking about your career was especially in a profession like yours, you grasp onto a certain type of law as far as
Mhm.
practicing law goes, and it becomes your identity, you become known for it, you
Right.
have a reputation in that, and then you made the decision to transition from
Mhm.
something you had been doing for decades to go in a different direction. How about you
Mhm.
share a little bit about what that journey was like?
Sure, sure. I have a background in litigation.
Mhm,
So by nature, arguing every day and investigating and then arguing some more. That's just what I did. That's just who I identified myself as being. Um, but about 10 years ago, when I went through that health scare, I just decided there's a more peaceful way to resolve conflicts.
mhm,
You know, um, many a times, you can try, and then if you try and you do the best of your ability to get it resolved, and it doesn't, then you won't have a choice but to have that fight, right? Have that battle. But I did decide that one way that I could help our community is to help people undergo their own transition, right?
mm,
So we do a lot of estate planning. I try to assist people with avoiding probate, and if they get to the point and they discover that a relative hasn't made those plans, then helping them control as much of the process as they can by going through the probate process. I love helping people preserve their assets, save their homes. We also do real estate and real estate foreclosure defense, but really just trying to find ways to help people grow their wealth and help them protect their wealth. So that is a lot of what we do. We do handle some probate litigation. Now, that's if you can't get things resolved, but we really try to make things as peaceful as people undergo those transitions
mm, mm.
while they celebrate the lives of their loved ones.
It's interesting you say that because the key word that I heard constantly and what you were just describing was help, help, help,
Mhm.
right? And that's your focus. That's the thing, and that's really what we're talking about as far as you giving back that gift and understanding that that's what resonates with you is your ability to help and to show that that's who you are and that's what really matters to you is that the importance of helping others. And I think that's an important piece that gets overlooked sometimes, and I think that's a key component because that's the gift that you're giving back. You have the
Mhm.
knowledge, you have the skill, you have all of that foundation. The question is, what do you do with it? How do you actually apply it? And that's what I'm hearing is that your focus and then what you do is really all about helping others. I think that's a huge thing.
Mhm. Yeah, that I think ever since, yeah, I think all my life that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to just go to work and just earn a paycheck. I really wanted to know that my work mattered and that I made a difference in people's lives.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
actually went to undergrad at a Methodist school, and I grew up Methodist, and that was just something that we always it was just always instilled in us, trying to help our community, trying to help our family, trying to be there for our friends. That sense of, we've been blessed, so let's make sure that we share and bless others.
Right. Absolutely. We have a comment here, and it basically says, "Always leave someone better than you found them."
Yes.
And if there is, I guess, a motto that you want to
Mhm.
live by, that's a great one, right? Because
Yes.
that's really the thing. And and I think the key is, as you mentioned a little while ago, we're talking about someone is
Mhm.
anyone. It doesn't matter what their station is in life.
Right.
You can always be that positive force, that influence, be a guide, and be show some kindness, and as you
Mhm.
said, be that light for anyone that you come across in your life. They don't have
Right.
to be, as in your field, a client necessarily.
Right.
It could be anyone, anywhere that you meet. And so I think that's a key component to it.
Mhm.
A part that I wanted to bring up is, and we kind of talked about this too, as far as transitioning yourself, is also understanding, and many of you probably have heard this saying before, that things come into your life for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime, right?
Right.
So when you're younger and you're in your 20s, you're in your 30s, certain things may come into your life. It could be career, it could be relationships, it could be family, it could be peer
Mhm.
groups, it could be
Mhm.
many different things. And
Right.
they serve you in the ways that they serve you at that stage in your life. But that doesn't necessarily mean that those things are there or should be the priority, I should say, for
Right.
a lifetime, right? It could be for
Mhm.
a certain reason or a certain season, meaning a certain amount of time. Um, and that's part of transitioning yourself, is getting you reach a different stage in life, a different understanding. Maybe your purpose or what
Mhm.
actually drives and motivates you changes, which means you have to kind of change and evolve yourself. And that's really what this is all about. It's just
Mhm.
getting a grasp of that and saying, you know what, it's time for me to pivot and go
Yeah.
in a different direction than,
Yeah.
than what I have been in the past.
Mhm.
And it's a very freeing thing when you
Mhm.
take that step. Now, can it be, is there some fear? Can it be scary? Absolutely. Because you're in this comfort zone. You're in this space of, I've been doing this way for so long.
Right.
So I'm comfortable. But again, it's one of those things where I think you can always transition out of it.
Mhm. Yeah, I am. I'm one of those people. I have my award certificates from kindergarten. So I hate to I hate to let go of anything. In fact, that's my chore this weekend, trying to get rid of stuff because I need to practice more of what you just said. And even with people, I think that's something day by day I'm learning more and more, trying to practice. Is you're right. You have to um, pivot
Mhm.
and accept changes. Um, Yeah, you really, really do. I'm
Mhm.
somebody who I grew up in Missouri City, and now I really live probably about 5 miles from the house that I grew up. I've traveled all around the world and worked all around the world. I've ended up back here,
Mhm.
and a lot of the same friends, a lot of the same. But like you just said, when there's something that you see that you need to change, or an environment, or someone uh, who is no longer there, you have to come to grips and accept that fact and pivot. I done handled a lot of divorces, right? And I've seen and heard so many um, negative things that people have done to one another. And then sometimes it's just not listening to one another, or
Mhm.
showing um, the concern in the ways that we should be showing concern for one another, or
Yeah.
respect, right? But even with
Yeah.
those, handling all of those, even I myself can sometimes just find myself saying, okay, you really have to. just whether it's a godchild or, a child of your own or a spouse or, a mom or dad, sometimes you really have to just step back and let that person have their own experience, their own journey, and realize that it's not reflective on who you are,
Right.
or or what you bring to the table or bring to their lives. You have to let everybody have their own journey. And I think for me, um, that I'm learning that too. I'm
Mhm.
I'm I'm like everybody else. I'm definitely learning that.
Yeah, it is, and it's interesting that you bring that up because one of the things, and as you said, you have a daughter, and I have 3 kids, and as a parent, obviously, you always want the best for your children, right?
Mhm.
However, you also have to learn and accept you can't live their lives for them as much as you would like to, right?
Mhm.
So letting go of that, getting comfortable with that concept of
Mhm.
um, I can't make every decision for them. They have to make their
Mhm.
own. They have to create
Mhm.
their own journey and their own path. And are they going to make mistakes? Yes, that's
Mhm.
part of life. We all make mistakes. And just to get to a place of acceptance and comfort with that is not easy, but
Mm-mm.
that is part of the whole transition piece of learning to focus on and appreciate the things you can and cannot control, basically. And then sometimes it's actually when you're trying to insert yourself
Mhm.
into places and into situations that you really shouldn't, because
Yeah.
you're adding stress to your own life, you're adding stress to
Mhm.
you, but you
Mhm.
really have no control over the whole situation anyway, right?
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And so it's almost like you're just running into a wall over and over and over and over, and you're trying to figure out why do I keep doing this? Well,
Mhm.
you're doing it to yourself, right? Because
Mhm.
you really can't control the situation anyway. Um,
Mhm.
and we have another comment. I just want to share it real quick. It says it's definitely freeing, when you do that. And they went on to say, you have to learn how to let go of what's not serving you,
Yeah.
uh, in the space that you're in. So,
Mhm.
and I think that's a key piece of what
Mhm.
we were talking about, the space that you're in,
Mhm.
because that space
Mhm.
that you're in is a continuum, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
you're in this space for a while.
Mhm.
Now you move to this space. Well,
Yeah.
that's a different space. So what was serving you here might not serve you in that
Mhm.
that next phase, that next space, however you want to look at
Mhm.
that. And
Mhm.
that's exactly what we mean by transitioning yourself is you can't take this person
Mhm.
100% and move them to this space because that
Right.
space has different dynamics. There are different things happening. And that's what we're talking about is understanding that, realizing that, and then
Mhm.
making those adjustments that you need to make within your life to, and again, I made some notes for myself here. Um, we're talking about self fulfillment. What does
Mhm.
that look like? What does that feel like?
Mhm.
Balance or harmony for
Mhm.
yourself
Right.
and the world around you. And
Right.
then just that natural evolution that happens as you go through life, and those key components. Um, and again, different stages, different phases of life, you have to go through that. You mentioned divorces,
Mhm.
and I'm sure you have, as you've gone through that, helping people with those different things,
Sure.
probably really have some stories to share and some
Mhm.
some interesting insights as
Mhm.
to that. How about you share a little bit of that?
Sure. Sure. Usually the saddest thing is when someone comes to me and they say, hey, I've been in this relationship, 20 years or 30 years. And now they're saying it's over.
Mhm.
And then they tell me, I knew 10 years ago, or I knew 15 years ago, or I knew in the beginning that I wasn't happy. And now they're telling me that they don't want to be here and I have to start over. I think dealing with it with situations when people are trying to figure out what does the next chapter look like, and we're talking about transitioning. We're talking about people who did not imagine that at 50 or 60 or 70 they would be alone.
Mhm.
or single again.
Mhm.
So really working with those individuals and trying to help them pivot their lives and figure out ways that they're going to find fulfillment and enjoy themselves in the the last few decades of their life, and helping them make it to the fullest. um, that for me is some of the most challenging aspects of what I do. Another challenging aspect is when there are children involved, and
Mm.
we don't put children first. There's one thing about me: I don't play about kids. I don't necessarily play a whole bunch with kids, but I definitely don't play about them.
Mhm.
And really, one of the biggest tragedies when it comes to divorce um, really is the impact it has on children when we adults don't handle our adult business in an adult fashion. Um, it is heartbreaking to see children who are put in the middle,
Mhm.
and who, of course, love both parents and should have access and be able to speak to parents freely, without having a lot of without having have overheard adult conversations. So for me, those two aspects of divorce are just heartbreaking. But a part of it also is, and I got this from watching the Food Network. There was a chef on there, and she said the secret to her and her husband's marriage is they both really are passionate about seeing the other person happy.
Mm.
So I think when we go into our relationships like that, like really, I'm passionate about this person's happiness. And then that other person is passionate about, our happiness. I think, and I think that creates a strong foundation to where you can really have conversations about how you feel and your thoughts and your goals. And then it increases the odds of you having a happy marriage. I think the goal for most people, at least I hope, is not to have a long term marriage, but to have a happy long term marriage in which both individuals can grow and both individuals support each other.
Mhm.
Um, Now, I think a key to part of that is you have to be a healthy individual in the beginning, and you have to be healthy to recognize another healthy person and to
Mhm.
accept that love that that person gives. Now, if somebody is an unhealthy person and they haven't worked through or gotten counseling or done everything that they needed to do to figure out what's going on inside of them, then that person really isn't a good match, no matter how much you love them. Uh, and again, that kind of goes back to people who 10 years down the line, 15, 20 years down the line, come back and they say, I knew in the beginning, or I knew. And you ask them, well, why did you do it? Well, we had kids together. Or, oh, well, my mama liked her. Or, oh, he was a good provider. He had a good job. It's like, why didn't you just stop and look at the character of the person and how they were treating you, and what was it that made you not value yourself enough to know that you were bigger and better than what you were
Yes.
telling yourself to settle for,
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you said so much there, and I want to jump in there because there's several pieces. There is first is there's no such thing as perfect, and we actually Bridget and I did a podcast about that. So perfection is one piece. If you're looking for that, you're never going to find it, not only within yourself but within someone else. So the acceptance and understanding that piece of it.
Right.
And then what you were just saying about, I knew in the beginning, or there were things, and you say, well, why did you jump into that relationship or stay with
Mhm.
that relationship? And there are many different reasons. I mean, it's you become comfortable with the person, or maybe you have kids with that individual, so you want to do that. It could be financial, um, but I think one of the root things that people get lost in right out of the gate is not understanding themselves, as you mentioned,
Right.
first and foremost.
Right.
What is it that you really want and desire, right?
Mhm.
And if you can't parse that out and understand and figure out what it is about yourself that
Mhm.
you really need, that you really want, that you want someone to give you so that you do feel fulfilled and complete. Um, and that's typically, I think, what happens as they get, 15, 20 years into a marriage or a relationship
Mhm.
is they're not getting what it is that they need from the
Right,
person, but they
right,
may not have even known what that was 15 years ago. And I
right.
think that's the key
Mhm.
component is taking that time to kind of figure that out, right? And
Mhm.
and get their head around that.
Right, right. And then and then sometimes, you can meet somebody and they have so many great characteristics, right? Of the person that you probably love the most, your father, or in the case of a boy, a man, your mother, right?
Mhm.
And but there's some other things that's just off. Like they might just be a complete ass. A complete ass,
Right,
But they
right.
have these other characteristics, and it might be that your father was an ass, but he was just incredibly fun, and just
Mhm,
or your mom, maybe your mom was just a hot mess, but you just adored her. So you end up
mhm,
being with somebody who is a hot mess like your mom that you can deal with because you dealt with your mama. But then there's some other things that kind of off, but you hadn't really met any other woman that's a hot mess like your mama that kind of gets you going, but this person got some qualities that your mama didn't have, but you like, yeah, but she got this, so I'm gonna go with that. I'm gonna go with it and try it. If it don't work out, that's the attitude some people have. If it don't work out, that's good or worse.
mhm.
I've literally heard that plenty of times from people. So yeah, lots of times people just have that thing that you like, that those characteristics, whether they're fun, exciting. Um, for some girls, if they didn't have some women, if they didn't have a father, some a guy that's absent, in a relationship, or not just a relationship, but a whole marriage relationship with somebody that's not there, that can't, that can, but they just don't um, try to pay attention
Yeah,
because they had a father that didn't pay attention.
right.
I think a lot of what we go through, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm just friends with some of them. It just seems like um, a lot of people just fall into that trap.
Yeah,
And to be quite frank, it kind of makes, when people don't do the work, it kind of makes the family law business go round.
yeah.
When people go to lawyers and they're saying, oh, ooh, it costs so much. Oh, it costs. You know what? Our not figuring ourselves out costs us so much.
Costs us so much. Absolutely. One other thing I want to throw on top of that is peer pressure. And I think we're definitely more susceptible to that when we're younger, but I think it still applies to you as you go through life. You're at that age and stage, and all my friends are getting married or are in these committed
Right.
relationships. So you feel like, okay, well, I need to join that club, basically,
Mhm.
kind of thing, right?
Right.
Um, so that becomes your objective, not finding the right person or not
Mhm.
even taking the time to figure self out. It's just,
Mhm.
I need to be able to join that club so that when we
Right.
hang out and do this or do that, I have that person on my shoulder,
Mhm.
as well.
Mhm.
And that sometimes can
Yeah.
lead to bad choices, right? So
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
peer
Yeah.
pressure piece of it.
Yep,
And
that's so true. I think sometimes that happens. I've actually seen it, or not seen it, or heard it happen actually to some guys that stayed single so long, and then their friends that got married. They're like, "Well, I guess I get married too. I guess I'm gonna do this," and not out of, they just
I
like,
guess I'll go on and do
"Well,
this.
I'll
That's
do
that
this, I'll
that's a
do this."
great
My
way to
friends
approach it.
got,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, all my line brothers, all my frat got got kids now. They settle down. Ain't nobody to hang with, I guess. Or at least hang out late. We maybe go grab a beer after work, but not. So like, well, I guess I'm gonna get married. Um, and then women too. But you know what? Some of it might also be a little generational, because people, I would say, born in the 70s and before then might have a different type of opinion about sexuality. There's some people now, they don't care. They don't, I mean,
Mhm.
they don't care how many sexual partners they have. They don't, it's, you know, people usually born in the 70s and before then, it's females. I don't know about the guys. Females, it's more in general. I won't say more selective. It's just it's a little different. So I
Mm,
think back when we were in our 20s, it might have been, you don't want to go around sleeping with a whole bunch of dudes. You just, nowadays, some women will date a lot of guys for an objective. Whereas back then, when we were in our 20s, we were just trying to find a good guy that was, smart, good looking, kind, fun, not just kind, but also fun. You don't want a boring dude, right? Um, and when you're 20s, you actually want to you want to be intimate with somebody. So I don't know if it was so much peer pressure as biology. And maybe it was a little peer pressure. You didn't want to be seen as somebody that just slept with any old body because the guys your age, they didn't want a girl who slept with any old body. So maybe it was a bit of peer pressure, parental pressure, church. I don't know.
absolutely.
Mhm.
So I want to kind of not necessarily transition our conversation, but I do want to bring this point up. So when we say transition yourself, it could be a career focus as far as that goes. It could be relationship focus. It could be peer groups. It could be even family and some family members in some ways. It could be hobbies. Different
Mhm.
things that hobbies that you have, and I think that's also important that you understand that this applies to many different categories within your life, right? And as far as transitioning and having that evolution, career is obviously an easy one. You talked about that with going from being focused on litigation to now doing more of estate planning and those kinds of things. And for some people, making those kinds of transitions can be hard because we tend to tie so much of our self identity sometimes
Mhm.
to our career or the title we have and those types of things. And maybe at an age and a stage that might have been important, but then you reach that place of, yeah, I don't really care about that anymore. Well, then what do you care about? And it's okay to transition yourself away from that. And family, friends, relationships, kind of are the same way. You can't necessarily maybe take those same people with you on the whole journey of your life, right?
Mhm.
Because
Right.
and understanding that and being okay with that, I think is a big piece of it. Peer groups, I think, makes a huge difference, right? If you say you want to accomplish this, you want to be that, but the group of people that you choose to
Mhm.
stick and stay with, if they don't have the same vision, if that's not what they're talking about, if that's not where their focus is, then what's going in, here, because that's
Right.
what you're hearing all of the time is the things that they want versus the things that you really want.
Mhm.
And getting outside of that group and basically getting yourself out of that box, I think
That's right.
is a key piece of it. Um, so with that said, I really want to just go back to just saying, don't feel like you're in this space of being caught or being trapped, right?
That's right.
And to kind of free yourself up. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Um, I think it's real important that we all take a look at our lives, look at our surroundings, the people we're around, the organizations we participate in, the workplace that we walk into every day, and we really have to do an assessment on, is this the environment that's really me, that's true to
Mhm,
me?
mhm,
With the people we surround ourselves with, are they positive? Do they uplift one another? Do the words that come out of their mouth, do they best friend's mom, edify? Do they edify one another? Or are they tearing people down? Um, we have to find, it's my recommendation that we have to take ourselves out of those situations where people are not being positive, if
mhm,
they're not leading positive lives, if they mistreat their own bodies, if they mistreat their children, talk to their children in a way that's not positive or building the children up, if they talk about um, their church members in a way that is negative, if they talk about themselves in a way that shows that they're not being kind to themselves, then we really have to assess, is this an environment or these people that we need to be around? If they're
mhm,
not doing productive things, if um, they're not helping the community, we shouldn't be embarrassed to say, I need to take myself out of this situation. One thing that it's my opinion, that we don't do enough of is value ourselves enough to say, this does not serve me. This does not serve who I am, who God made me to be. This does not serve God. And every day that we live, we really have to realize that we might not have that next day. So we only have so much time, and we have to ask ourselves, do we really want to spend time living like this? Or do we really want to spend time around these type of people? Do I really want to spend time around this type of place? You know, the companies that we work for, what is their purpose? What is their mission? What are they doing? Are they giving back to things that are important to me? Are they creating products that are harmful to places that I care about or people I care about? You know, we really have to look at where we put our energy and where we put our money. You know, if it's something, someplace, or somebody who you know doesn't represent who you are, then we have to be bold enough and believe in ourselves enough to say, no, let me create a plan to get myself out of this situation. Or let me create the plan and execute the plan to change this environment. If other people around you in that environment, if they're not down with that, then you have to just say goodbye, because ultimately, at the end of the day, you have to be accountable for yourself, what you did. You have one body, you have one mind, one soul. So you have to do what's best at the end of the day for you and the purpose of why God put you here in the first place. Because he could take you out. If you don't get it twisted. If you don't live according to your purpose, then you really have squandered time and a great opportunity and a great life.
Absolutely. I want to jump in there too because you hit on something when you talked about time and energy, and those are things you don't get back, right? Time is we all have a limited amount of time because, as we know, that the circle of life, there is an end that will come, and that is part
Right.
of just a circle of life. So once you spend time, invest time, waste time, whatever term you want to use, you don't get that back. And then the energy piece of it, sometimes when you're in these negative situations, these negative environments around negative people, that drain on you and your energy is it sometimes even hard to describe how the impact that has on you, your heart, mind, your spirit, and all of that, and the place that it puts you in. And I think that's one of the challenges with people have sometimes being able to transition themselves. They are so I guess the term is lost is the word I want to use because they can't even figure out like which way is up, right?
Right.
In those situations, because their energy is being taken, their focus is in places that it shouldn't be. And I think that's a
Mhm.
key piece of understanding from a self-awareness standpoint
And a lot of
as you
times people don't want you to transition.
yeah.
A lot of times people want you to stay exactly how you are because it suits their purpose. It suits what they want for their life. They can control it. If they can control you, if they can just make you feel this big, then they don't have to worry about losing you, right? If
Mhm.
you don't care about what you eat, you just eat any old kind of thing. You don't care about your hair. You don't care about your nails. You don't care about the kinds of people you're around. You're around people that don't take care of themselves either. Well, that's very convenient for somebody who wants to use you, right? Because you feel so bad about yourself. You feel, oh, I can't do, oh, this is all I can be. Oh, no, oh, I'm just lucky to have this person. Oh, I'm just lucky that oh. No, you have to be willing to say, I'm going to do what's best for me. I mean, most of us, you know what's healthy for you. What's good for your soul. It's just a
Mhm.
matter of doing it. And if we don't do it, or if we allow other people around us to control us to the point of where we're not taking care of ourselves and really living out God's mission for our lives. Everybody has their own mission, their own purpose. But when we're not doing that, we're really I don't want to sound no, I don't care if I sound too Pentecostal. You're really on team devil. That's what you are. You're really on team devil because you're not doing what's good for you. If you
Right.
can't take care of yourself, you can't help anybody. You can't be a good role model to your kids. We can't be good role models to the other children in the community. We can't do anything for our parents. We can't be a good sibling. You can't be a best friend. You call yourself a best friend. You can't be a best friend to yourself if you don't take care of yourself. I mean,
Absolutely.
we have to be bold enough and believe in, if you don't believe in yourself, believe in your God enough to know that you can transition, you can pivot, you can make a change in your life. If something is not healthy for you, not serving you, or if you see another opportunity and your gifts would be great in that opportunity. It's not that your life is horrible here where you're working is bad. You might be doing just great, but you see where your gifts can serve even more people. You can, if you got into that position, if you use your gifts and just went for it, got into that position, you see all the other people you can help, then go for it. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Don't
Yeah.
be. I mean, you might have just been created just for that purpose. So we can't be afraid. We cannot.
Absolutely. That said, obviously, throughout your life, you've come into situations where you've had to make those types of transitions, those types of changes. How about you share what you did? How did you get past? How did you get out of your own way? I guess
Mhm.
is a good way to say it. To make
Career
those
wise
changes.
or personally?
Whatever you want to share, either one.
Sure,
Either.
sure. Sure. We'll go. The easy one is career wise because
Okay.
one of the blessings, I guess, in my life is that I was actually born into a family where there were lawyers. There are other lawyers, and the lawyers had mentors who were older lawyers. And so, in career settings, really just making sure that I worked hard, but also that I got to know um, my mentors. Also got to know my colleagues and actually spent time with them, so that as everybody transitioned into different firms, or some of them went to different cities and went in-house, became in-house counsel, um, we all were able to help each other. So uh, the career transitions really came about because I took the time to formulate uh, relationships with other people, and so that made the changes easier, and
Okay.
it also allowed for other opportunities because I always try to make sure that I was in places where I could hear about those opportunities and I could share the opportunities that I knew um, really weren't for me with other people. So it wasn't just a matter of me taking from them, but always trying to make sure that I could bring something to the table to help other people. Personally, wow, personally, let's see. I didn't share too much about my personal life, but I'm a mom. I am a mom of adopted baby. She is now a sophomore at Prairie A&M University. I am divorced, so I can tell you a little bit about that transition. I went through a divorce. I don't know if y'all remember the 2008 financial crisis, but I
Yes.
went through a divorce shortly after that. And I can tell you that I had an opportunity to amass quite a bit of money. And then in 2008, lost everything. Lost everything. And then soon thereafter, found myself going through a divorce. And when I tell you that I was like one of those little girls that just knew I would get married and I'd have a family and have this house and I'd have parties with my friends. And I always had that vision of my life. And honestly, it didn't turn out that way. It didn't turn. I got married, had that wedding, just everything. It's just truly a beautiful, beautiful guy. But the crash happened. We lost everything. Found myself getting a divorce shortly thereafter. Went back to working overseas a lot, coming back into town. That talk about a transition because my mom
Mm.
was helping me. He was, of course, the dad of my daughter was very active, and my mom also helped us raise my daughter when I had to travel a lot. But I also found myself in a situation that I just never ever imagined. Right,
Mm. Mhm.
and I tell you, one of the things that really helped me cope through that, a few things. One, God, of course, um, my family, friends, um, and then really counseling.
Mhm.
People don't talk about that enough, but therapy, uh, really trying to figure out why this happened. I'm a big thing. If I can't control an environment, I want to understand it. So that's
Mhm.
when you talk about letting things go. That I always want to understand why something happened. Sometimes you really can't ever get to that point. You drive yourself crazy trying to understand.
Mhm.
But but counseling and really just taking time to be alone. Sometimes we go through things and we try
Mhm.
to keep our minds busy or try to keep so many people around us that we don't have to think about what we're experiencing. And if we don't think about it and we don't experience it, then we don't have to work through it. We can kind of ignore it. And really going through that, counseling helped a lot. And then after that, after the divorce, a few months later, that's when I found out I had leukemia.
Wow.
So leukemia was the main focus for a long, long time. The leukemia and recovery, excuse me, the recovery um, was the focus. So really, I think without God, without my family, without my friends, and I'll tell you, the Willow Ridge friends, uh, Southwestern University friends, and then best friends from law school. Uh, Without those, I just I don't think I would be here today
Yeah.
because literally, though, that's what really kept me going and kept me lifted up. So if I can share anything else with people, it would be make sure you stay connected. Don't isolate yourself. We're all in this world. We're all going through something. If you meet somebody that's not going through something, they just came out of something, stay
Mhm.
connected with people. I know sometimes people are like, oh, I don't like people. I don't like, that's fine to be, but stay connected with, if you like gardening, get into a gardening group. If you like, a church, become active, get to know people. If you like running, go run, join a running club. But we all need each other. And when we isolate ourselves, we really do ourselves a disservice because we're all connected.
Mhm.
So I'm
Mhm.
not saying you have to go out and know a whole bunch of people and all, but whatever your interests are, stay connected with people that have that similar interest. Um,
Absolutely, absolutely. You said a whole lot in that. So some things that I noted, obviously having the strength and the courage, the perseverance to pick yourself up, and because when you have, that sequence of things happen, the crash and financial piece, and then the marriage and the end of that, and then the sickness, and that gets lumped on. It puts you in that mind space of, well, I quit. I throw my
mhm,
hands up and I give up. But having that perseverance to pick yourself up, I think, is a key component that people need to really focus on and say, you're blessed with another day, make the best of it, right? So it's
mhm,
to pick yourself up. And then the mental health thing, you brought that up. And that's one thing that Bridget and I, when we're doing a lot of our podcasts, we talk about that a lot, that there used to be some shame around that,
mhm.
and something you didn't want to talk about. But it's
Yeah,
key. It's a very important thing that you
very
take
important.
care of, and
Mhm,
open and honest about your challenges and what may be a struggle for your mental health. And as you said,
mhm,
see a professional, see a counselor, whoever that might be, to help guide you through that, as well as you mentioned, being connected to friends, family, whoever else it might be, that truly have your best interest at heart. And I
mhm.
say that because
Yep,
that's a key piece too,
yep.
is you want those that are gonna uplift you, not those
Mhm,
that want to pull you back down, right?
mhm.
That's a
Exactly.
big part of it. And then the last thing that I want to say that you also touched on, and that was, sometimes it's just a matter of being still.
Mhm,
We always feel like we have to do,
mhm,
but sometimes you actually just need to take some breaths, take some time, and
mhm.
just be still, right?
Right.
r- that strengthens you. It gives you your chance to recoup and get some energy back. Then you can go about running 100 miles an hour again.
Mhm,
But understanding that, yeah, it's okay sometimes to just be still and then start to run. And I think that those are key components.
mhm,
Yeah,
mhm,
absolutely. No,
mhm,
thank you so much for sharing that, because that was a lot to unpack, and I think that really will help my audience to reflect on, either where they've been, where they are today, or maybe where they want to go.
Yeah, I hope
So
so.
I hope so too. And so I want to transition kind of to closing this out. So from the standpoint of, all of those experiences that we've shared, the different things that we've talked about today, what are some of the final thoughts or some of the last things that you'd like to leave our audience with?
Definitely, if I could share just a few last things, it would be to make sure that you take the time to just love on yourself, love yourself. Think about what is good for you and don't be afraid to go after it.
Hmm.
And by good for you, I'm including surrounding yourself with positive people, positive things, going positive places. If something isn't positive, then there's no way that it can serve your purpose, serve you. You have to just let it go. And that includes, people.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
sometimes that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
Um,
It is. It is. And you shared that, and we're talking about people, and that's a recurring theme that seems to come up. That is a struggle, right? Um, Understanding that all people don't serve you well, right? And
right.
sometimes you have to cut those ties, move on,
Mhm.
and it might be completely cutting the tie, but definitely limit the access that they have to you, so you can keep your mental health, your focus, and keep moving in the direction that you want to move. That's absolutely true.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And sometimes that can be somebody that you were in love with. Sometimes it can be an employer. It can be a lot of things. Sometimes it can be a church,
Yes.
where you have to pivot and change change churches.
Hmm.
But I think people know, but it's fear of change, and sometimes it's just pure laziness. You know, sometimes people just being lazy and don't
Hmm.
want to go through what they need to go through, do the work to make the improvement or make the
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
But there's a part, right? And is it Joshua would say, be strong and of good courage. I think that is really a big part of survival. Be strong and of good courage.
Yeah.
Know
Uh,
that you're never alone. You might feel like it, but that's just a part of our mind's right line to us,
mhm.
make us I hate to say unsuccessful. I think to help us to make us fail. It's a part of our minds doing a trick on us.
Mhm.
But if you're strong, be strong and of good courage, then you'll know that you have all the love around you and that really inside of you, you have what you need to make that change so that you'll be able to fulfill your purpose. But you have to just believe. And then, like you said about people, that's the key. If we're around people who don't believe, around people who are negative, then that's just a setup for us to fail. But we
Yes.
we can't fail because you only have so much time.
So much time, right? The days are numbered, for all of us. So my final thoughts go back to, um, I mean, and happiness it's like, say, what is love, or what is happiness, and it means different things to all of us, right? As far as that goes, but that's the key is understanding self enough to know what you do value, in those different arenas, so that you have some fulfillment, or your happiness, the loves that you have in your life, whether it's relationships or family or whatever else that's going on there, and how you have that in your life, and then getting to a place of, or I use the term harmony versus balance, because
Mhm.
balance is like a razor's edge. That means you've got to have it perfect, and that's probably not going to happen. But just having harmony in your life, whether it's harmony in your career, harmony in your home and your family life, harmony in the activities you have outside of those things, and that you have some balance with that, are key components, I think, to all of that. And if in any way you feel that any of that is off kilter and it's just not working, that's what we mean by it's time to transition. It's time to pivot. It's trying to figure out why it's not working, what's broken, what's wrong,
Mhm.
and then try to look for those cures and move in directions to try to get those things back into a place of harmony so that you feel more fulfilled in your life. I think that's a key component. And again, that goes back to mental health. So many pieces feed into all of that. I think that's a key piece of it.
Mhm.
And as you said, the fear of change is a big part of it.
Right.
But we all, as I said earlier, we all have gifts, and we all have strengths, we all have weaknesses, right?
Mhm.
And just because it's a weakness doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it. And I think that's another thing people need to understand. You can learn how to do it. I always talk about as kids, we all learn how to ride a bike, most of us, right? And
Mhm.
it's like the first few times, what did you do?
Mhm.
You're falling all over the place, right? Right? Cuts and bruises and everything else that goes on. But you get past that fear, you get past the falling, and eventually you're zooming down the street like a crazy person on the bike. Uh, tho that same attitude is what you need to have now, right? Yeah, it's gonna be scary. Yeah, you might get some bumps and bruises in the early stages of it, but that's all part of the learning and the growth process of the transition and the pivot. So that's what I would say is try to get yourself into that mindset of that five-year-old child who's trying to navigate that bike, right?
Mhm.
And apply that to whatever it is you're trying to move on to transition yourself to in your life, and that's going to make all the difference in the world. So yes, there is fear, but also kind of become fearless, because I think that's a key component.
That's right.
Erica, this has been fantastic. I really appreciate you joining. I think the
Pleasure.
audience will pick up so many great nuggets out of this that they can use to help, quote unquote, transition themselves to whatever it may be in the next phases of their life. And then the last thing I want to share for me is on from the Ascent Academy side of this is I have created a masterclass, and that particular masterclass is specifically focused to getting some self-awareness and starting to work your way towards what I use the term of self-excellence. And it's available online at ascentmasterclass.com. You can go there, and it's broken out into these 6 modules: aspiration, spark, commitment, evolution, navigation, and transcendence. And from that, I think you can really start to glean maybe a new direction that you might want to start to transition yourself into in life. And it gives you all of the framework that you need to accomplish that. So check it out. You can actually do the first 2 modules. So that's the aspiration and the spark, at no obligation to you. They're online for anybody else to access. Again, at ascentmasterclass.com. So check that out when you have time. I think it's definitely worth the investment of the time that you'll spend there. That's all I have for today. Eric, anything you want to share just before we wrap up?
No, it was my pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I've
Yes,
enjoyed myself.
thank you. And we'll have her back as a guest. So look forward to having her on, and we'll have some future things to share as just like for her and for myself, life will continue to evolve, and we'll have new stories and new adventures to share, I'm sure. So we'll absolutely pass that on to you. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, and until next time, aloha and take care.
Take
Bye
care.
now.
Bye bye.